I think for us, it's really about identifying potential employees who are both skill aligned with what we need, but also mentally aligned with our growth model and where we see ourselves as an agency. I think you have to find the people who have the same vision of the future as you do, and that's not always easy. It's an extremely difficult, especially as you grow and as people who started or were there in the early days of the company get further removed from the process of actually doing the hiring. It becomes more and more important in making sure that every person involved in that process is kind of on the same page. But I think that we've been extremely successful and lucky in identifying talent who have that growth mentality, flexibility, rolling with the punches, kind of versatile team players. And I think that that's really what has contributed to our success and growth in a short period.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we look at the alignment between vision and values and how that impacts the growth of the company. We've had a lot of interviews where we talk about values separately. We've had interviews where we have discussions about the vision, but this one's about how do you get employees that are aligned with the vision and the values together, what that really means for the company, and how that translates into success of the organization and a great place to work. Our guest today is the CEO of Relevance. Relevance was on the Inc. list at number 88 in 2023. So they grew at an astronomical rate. We have Misty Larkins with us discussing, finding that alignment with vision and values across the company and with each of the employees, and how do you have to maintain it, and the delicate aspects of this as it changes over time and changes with people and changes with seasons of the company. All of that unpacked into this episode about creating alignment with vision and values across the organization. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We have a leadership development arm of the business where we take people and make them more effective leaders. I work with a lot of executives. My team works with a lot of managers and helping them hone their leadership skills. And all of this together is to really create more growth inside the company. All of our clients are actually on the Inc. 5000. In fact, we work with more Inc. 5000 companies than any other leadership development company that we know of. And so if you are curious about what does it take to continue growing your company after you've already been successful, well, we actually can help you harness that, catch that momentum, and fine tune some of the elements of leadership and culture that are often missing when you actually are driving really fast. So if you're curious about these things, we have a capability briefing that we could share with you where it talks about how we work, how we serve. We'll share with you some of the tools we use and get you to kind of grade yourself. And that will be a good starting point. It's absolutely free. And all you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, if you're curious about any of the other aspects of what we do, this is a great place for us to start, and look forward to getting to know you. Now, here's the interview with Misty. Misty, how are you?
Doing well, Gene. How about you?
Fantastic. We're going to have a great interview. I've known of Relevance for a long time. You and your partner, I don't know how you guys even talk about this, but John Hall and John Rampton, and just really great people and a great company. But you came here not because of our friendship, because we've never met before, but because Relevance has performed at a very high level over the last few years, making you 88 on the Inc. 2003 honoree list. 88 is really a high number. Were you guys pretty impressed with that?
We were, yeah. We had a strong inclination that we would wind up in the top 500 just based on what we knew our numbers were and kind of historically our following of the Inc. 5000 list. But to wind up in the top 100 was really great. Also, 88 just rhymes with a lot of things, so the hashtags were great. Like 88 feeling great, I think was our hashtag we used. But yeah, it was a probably one of the biggest wins externally that we've had in our short history. But yeah, we were super proud of the whole team. And
it's a huge honor. And I know we haven't done this. So for our audience, tell us about your company, Relevance.
Yeah, so Relevance is an organic growth marketing agency that focuses on elevating brands to help them own their industry. We focus on areas like digital PR, thought leadership, and search engine optimization. We've worked with other Inc. 5000 companies, Fortune 500 companies, but my favorite is really challenger brands and underdog brands, like helping them become radically relevant and super visible and grow their client base.
I normally talk about trends, but what I'm kind of curious, you're working with a lot of people who think PR and all the digital world out there is a little bit of a farce. We get the emails, and I know you know this. They're like, hey, you can be a part of this for $3,000. We'll get reprint rights or whatever it may be. And the pay to play model is rampant in our world. But what do you wished business owners understood about PR and and really the impact of that as a strategy for their business?
Yeah, I think that people really understood more about how all of the things are holistically tied together, right? Like just doing a PR campaign, like even if you land, even if you're a consumer brand and you wind up on Oprah's favorite things list, which is kind of like, has been the pinnacle for a really long time, that might get you a boost in recognition, a boost in traffic, a boost in conversions, but it's not a long-term strategy for your overall brand, right? And if you only do that and you don't focus on the customer experience while they're on your site, if you're not constantly trying to thoughtfully contribute to articles in the industry about what's going on, if you're not trying to grow your overall profile as a trusted brand in your space, no one thing is going to be, there's no silver bullet, I guess is my thing. I wish everyone knew that there's no silver bullet when it comes to a comprehensive marketing growth strategy. You really need to comprehensively look at how all your things are working together to create an overall picture for your brand holistically. So, but you're right, the pay to play model is rampant. And honestly, some of those things can work, right? If they're extremely targeted for your audience, your industry, exactly who you're looking for, I'll never turn down my nose at any paid strategy so long as it achieves the goals that you think it will. I think that people just have misaligned expectations for what any one tactic is going to result in terms of results. And then they wind up disappointed. And then they hate PR as a whole. And they think
Yeah.
that every PR company isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So,
And I get pitched a lot to be on my podcast. And so I get a lot of bad pitches and they
mm,
come from PR companies. And I know you guys have a very different approach than that. We've actually partnered in the past. It's been years. When I wrote for Inc. magazine, I would need sources for things. Don't write for them anymore because of just focused on the business in a different way. But there is a lot of misconceptions around PR and probably what you guys do. And I will say from my experience with Relevance, it's just an incredibly solid company. They understand how to guide people through the nuance of this. And really just happy to have you on the show, Misty.
thank you so much, and thank you for saying that about Relevance. I think for the longest time we've just been like we're really trying to rehab the image of PR companies too, and be very results focused and results oriented, and achieve the goals that our clients, whatever they are, like find the best path to achieve their goals, whether that's by getting a mention on Inc. magazine, or whether that's by creating content that helps their user journey and improves their conversion rates.
Well, we're going to switch gears, Misty, to get into the whole leadership and culture side of this. Our podcast, Growth Think Tank, is really focused on telling the stories of the companies that are performing at a high pace of growth like you are. But how are they doing this? And what do we learn from what you guys have learned about aligning people together? You have about 25 employees, full-time equivalents. I know you've got some contractors that help you round out the field. What do you think really drives the growth of your company?
I think for us, it's really about identifying potential employees who are both skill aligned with what we need, but also mentally aligned with our growth model and where we see ourselves as an agency. I think you have to find the people who have the same vision of the future as you do, and that's not always easy. It's an extremely difficult, especially as you grow and as people who started or were there in the early days of the company get further removed from the process of actually doing the hiring, it becomes more and more important of making sure that every person involved in that process is kind of on the same page. But I think that we've been extremely, successful and lucky in identifying talent who have that growth mentality, flexibility, rolling with the punches, kind of versatile team players. And I think that that's really what has contributed to our success and growth in a short period.
Now, some people, when I have these interviews, they frame this a little bit differently. And maybe we're talking about something different, but they talk about the need for employees to be aligned with the company values. Is that what you're talking about? Or is it you seeing the nuance behind this?
I mean, I think values is a piece of it, right? Like values is a piece of it. And I think that it really has to do with like who we are as a company. Like we say that I don't know how you view swearing on your podcast. So we have like a no asshole policy, right? Like for us, our values align in the sense that like we have a no asshole policy. We really want to work with good people, with good companies who are doing good in the world, and we want to align ourselves as it relates to being results focused and oriented. But to me, it also has to do with the vision of the company and how we operate, right? Like we have openly communicated to almost every person that we interview that we're very small. We're a small, lean, mighty team. We ask a lot of our employees, right? We ask for technical skills and soft skills. We ask a lot, right? And we know that it also, somebody has to be very comfortable with change to do well here, because we try to be innovative within the space. And that often means trying new things, whether that's new channels, new tactics. And if somebody's not comfortable with their, job description, maybe being nuanced and changing over the course of 6, 9, 12 months, then they're not going to be successful here. So I think it's about values, yes, but it's also about the vision of who we are as a company and what that looks like in terms of execution and how that translates into job roles. Because not everybody is well suited for that. And that's fine, right? There are companies out there that are well suited for people who need a little more structure, or they need a little more consistency in the long run in terms of what they do. That's just not us, right? So I think it's both vision and values when I'm talking about finding people who align with our overall mentality.
We talk a lot about the values with other interviews on the show. We don't talk as much about the vision. So I want to kind of probe into how you use vision as a piece or a tool for alignment. If I were to look at your vision, how would you describe it? Is this a vision statement, or is it a one pager? Is it 3 pages or 10 pages? How do you frame
it? Depends on what day you ask me. I think, I always push back when people are like, oh, we have a vision statement. I'm like, has it changed recently? Like, how is that working out for you? Right. I think our vision is more of a model, right? It's more of a model of execution and a model of what we want the future of the company to look like versus just a blanket statement. Right. So in our particular situation, our vision has a lot to do with what the overall way in which we help clients can evolve. Our North Star is really helping brands find that industry ownership piece. We know that that's a really long-term solution, or a long-term plan for a lot of companies. It's not just you're not going to wake up in 6 months and you're not going to be an industry owner, right? There are pieces that have to go into that, especially if you're a growing brand, a challenging brand. But our vision is to be the kind of the exclusive or the top level partner for brands that are looking to find that industry ownership. Now, how we get there, we know that that's going to change. Like today, it might be digital PR and content and thought leadership and SEO. Tomorrow, it might be, well, hopefully not tomorrow, but in 6 months, it might be something different. We need to have the flexibility to shift. So for me, it's more of a vision model of flexibility, willing to be agile, willing to be innovative, willing to try new things. And knowing that what relevance looks like today might not be what relevance looks like in 12 months, and being okay with that.
Now, Misty's been talking about vision. We don't actually suggest a vision statement. I think I got this from Cameron Harold, who's been on the show before, written a vivid vision, but we do a similar process to that, where we actually have a 3-page document that allows us to go into depth around this. Now, there's different ways to slice that. You can have a small statement that summarizes things. You can have mission statements. You can have values listed, all those things. But we actually put it all together so that we create a tool to share with employees about the vision. And there should be, in my opinion, their team should be a part of this vision, and they should know how they fit into it. Every employee across the company should go, my team's represented on this vision. This is how we fit into the overall bigger mission and vision of the business. It just helps people to understand it because it's sort of in black and white. You have done the work, you and your executive team, to create a vision for the next 3 years that says this is who we'll be as a company. This is what we'll look like when we get to this place. So that's my take on visions. Hopefully that helps you. Back to Misty. Reminds me of a lot of companies that have successful businesses, but they fail to evolve. What you're trying to describe is we've got this end goal and we're not sure how we're going to get there because it changes. Marketing in general just changes so damn much that you've got to have this flexible approach to, well, what works now? Misty, how do you lead a team like this? Like, what have you learned? Because a lot of people are creative. A lot of people are have these different skill sets, whether they be technical or otherwise. How do you find the challenges of leading a team like this?
I think that for me, particularly, the best way that I can lead a team of people is to embody those skills and those traits myself, right? So I have to be willing and flexible to be open to new ideas that can come from anywhere. I have to be willing to try and fail myself. I have to be willing to like constantly keep an open mind, right? And I think that the battle is fought against complacency, and it's fought against comfortability in order to be able to model that. Because I think as a leader, sometimes you fight through those trenches and you embody those skills, and then you get to a point and it's kind of like there's this very strong tendency, I think, for people to then rest, right? And maybe you've earned that rest. Maybe you've earned the idea of like just like relaxing and like settling into the comfortability and what is common, or what is, comfortable is just the best word I think of it. Like, so I think that in order to lead a team like that, you have to be willing to take chances, make mistakes, and be wrong and admit that you're wrong, right? Otherwise other people won't be comfortable doing that. They won't be comfortable doing that if you don't demonstrate that. Like, because I think that being supportive is the other part of it, right? Like giving people a safe place to fail, I guess, is the other key part, right? Like if you want to be innovative, if you want to evolve, if you want to be that type of company, you have to be okay with being wrong, and you have to be okay with allowing your employees to fail forward. But yeah, so that's all I can say for myself in terms of how I think it's been successful, is providing a safe place to land for people to fail forward.
Now, Missy just said something that takes me back to my first book. She said the fight against complacency. Now, I know a lot of organizations are growing and maybe they're innovating, but there's still more complacency involved and around than you want it to be. And if you truly are looking to break barriers and innovate, you've got to really get rid of complacency. And I actually wrote a book about this a few years ago called The Trap of Success, because in full disclosure, I got really comfortable with the success I had, the freedom I created, the money that was rolling in, and I wasn't willing to innovate and push the boundaries. And I ended up losing it all. And I had to rebuild my life. And I ended up writing a book about not only rebuilding my life and losing it all, but actually what are some of the core elements I connected to and the tools I used. And inside of The Trap of Success, you can check that out. If you want to buy it wherever you buy books, you're more than welcome to support me. I think I get $1 per book, but I love for people who are looking for a reason to push beyond where they are today is to read The Trap of Success, because it will help them in a big way. Back to Misty. In my coaching work, this is a phrase that comes up quite often, which is leading by example. And you can probably understand where I take this when someone's like, they're not being flexible, they're afraid to fail. And I go, well, how are you demonstrating that? And they can kind of dance around it, but they're like, oh, I could probably do a better job. And I have to choose my words wisely of not saying that they're not doing it, but like, how do you do it better? So when you're leading by example and you're asking people to fail and fail forward, how does that look across an organization that's growing at the pace you're growing?
I think it looks like for us, it's a lot about like collaboration and bringing things to the table, right? So because we're a small team, each of our account managers or our strategists or a team are working with, small subset of clients. And because we are small, we have a small pool, right? So for us, learning to fail and fail forward is about each person being comfortable to not only talk about things that they've tried and how they failed, but then being able to work as a team to determine, okay, like what are the things we learned from this? What other clients would this apply to? Where else have we seen this? So it's about collaboration. I think for us, particularly just because of the team dynamics that we have and the size. But that's kind of what it looks like for us. It's creating this open dialogue between, and then also like across teams, right? We have a whole publication and editorial team. If a pitch doesn't land, right, it's about the editorial team coming back and saying, okay, like these are the things targeting wise that we think could have been done better, and this is the feedback we got from the contributor or the editor or the publication. Like here's how then we would recommend changing it the next time we decide to try this. And it's about not being afraid to try and fail again, right? Because every time we fail, we learn something new, and hopefully we get better as a result. So that's what it looks like for our team. And you have to do it fast. That's the other thing, right? Like you can't sit and dwell on your failure. You have to very quickly learn how to internalize and work through it, and then boil it down to the most important things that you learned, and then move on to the next thing. You have to have a goldfish memory, I guess. You have to have a goldfish memory when it comes to failures. So learn what you can from it and then move forward, because if you dwell on it too long or let that make you afraid to try again, you're not going to grow and evolve at the pace which we have decided that we want to grow and evolve.
We don't have that many Ted Lasso moments in here, but you brought up one, so I thought we'd highlight that. One final question here: like leaders are always evolving and learning, and maybe the way that they saw leadership in their earlier days of leadership are just different now. How would you say is your biggest inflection point as a leader? Is there anything you could share with us about that?
So for me, I think the biggest lesson that I had to learn, and the thing that once I recognized it and actively worked towards it, made me a better leader. So my background is all on the client side, right? Like I grew up, quote unquote, grew up in the client service, marketing and advertising, almost 20 years at this point, right? And I think that the best feedback that I was given as I was evolving in my leadership roles was, you have to learn how to take a step back, right? And be that blend of not just thinking what's going to be good for the client side of the relationship, but also what's good for the business side, what's going to be good for the business, what's going to be good for the clients. Because I would constantly, if there was ever a discussion about how we were going to implement something or a new, service or a new strategy, or like hearing from the sales team, I would tend to constantly put on my client service hat and think about how something was going to be different in terms of meeting expectations for a client. And I wasn't thinking through, how is this going to impact, to how getting people excited about working with our business, right? Like walking that line. And as soon as I learned that I was going to have to like take a step back and put on my agency manager hat that was responsible for the overall health of the agency, and maybe some of those things, would impact the client side in a way that we're not super happy with, but like we're going to work through it. That to me was the biggest inflection point when it comes to like my own leadership style, and my success at being able to manage an organization versus manage a team.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Misty. I really appreciate you being here and being a part of Growth Think Tank.
Yeah, of course.
Wow, what another fantastic interview for this podcast. I love what I'm doing because I get to really tune into people that are in the trenches and are actually living this. She even talked about the importance of living by example. If you want employees that are aligned with the vision and the values, you have to also live by example, because otherwise it's inauthentic and it just doesn't provide the trust that you need to across the organization. So all that being said, I really appreciate you tuning in today. If there's any way we can help you through our executive coaching or through leadership development, make sure you keep coming back. If you want to talk about it, you can actually schedule a call to see how we can move forward if there is an interest there. So all you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. As always, lead with courage, and see you next time.